Okay, welcome. Let's get started. So welcome to this session at Build with Mapbox on documentation and developer tools. My name is Chris Wong. I am the head of developer relations at Mapbox, and I also run the team that is most focused on the documentation platform. So we have lots to share with you today, including a few live demos. We just want to give you kind of an overview of the tools at your disposal as you build with Mapbox, maybe teach you some things you didn't know about or show you some features you didn't know about today. So let's jump in. So before we get started, some housekeeping. So there are captions available in multiple languages that you need to turn on in the Zoom platform. You can submit questions through the Zoom Q&A, so we will have a few minutes for questions at the end of the session. And every session you participate in during Build with Mapbox, you'll get a chance to win Mapbox swag. So sign up to as many as you can and learn lots of great things about Mapbox during this event. And you can discover past build sessions in the Zoom event lobby or on mapbox.com/build. So all these will be recorded and published for you to view later or share with your friends. So today I'm joined by Jesse Sherrill, who is a technical support engineer at Mapbox, who also works on AI. I'm also joined by Andrew Sepich and Emily Ryan, who are on my team. So we support the documentation platform. So Andrew's a front-end engineer, and Emily is a developer relations and content specialist. So they'll all be on. Jesse will present a little bit later, and then Andrew and Emily will join us when it's time for Q&A. Let's keep moving. Okay, so we're going to do a quick overview of the Mapbox docs and dev tools. So I have a few slides and then a bunch of live demos to show you today. So docs.mapbox.com. I'm sure many of you, this is like the first thing you landed on when you search for how to build some kind of map or maybe your first exposure to our tools. But there's over 1,500 pages of technical content on here. So it's a lot to maintain. It's a lot to keep up to date. We get about 1.4 million page views. So you're constantly coming back to kind of search around and find the things you need to help build, API references, examples. And as you probably know, we have over 40 products and APIs represented in these docs. So there's a lot to show. So navigation and kind of intuitive ways to find what you're looking for are important to us. And leave one quote on this slide: "The docs are the product." Obviously, that's not completely true, but for developers, this is kind of your window into how the products actually work. So we want to make sure we put a lot of emphasis on making things clear, explaining things properly, but also providing good reference materials so that you can get things done while you're building. So all of our docs are Markdown and MDX based behind the scenes. We actually use a platform called Docusaurus, which is one of the most popular open source static site generators for specifically for technical documentation. So that was a migration we did earlier this year. We use the normal sort of Git cycle or Git flow for pulling in new changes to the docs. So there's a review, just like you would do a code review. And there are dozens of weekly updates, maybe even hundreds sometimes from all over the company. We also have automated checks in place. So we check for dead anchors or links to make sure that you're not left with bad links that don't go anywhere. We want to make sure those are minimized. We check for spelling and grammar and consistency for common terms used around the docs. So we want to make sure that you don't see, one term referred to a certain way in one place and then differently in another place. So these are all things that we do behind the scenes to give you a higher quality while you're surfing the docs. I should point out that our help docs, if you go to docs.mapbox.com/help, all these resources live separately from the actual product docs. So we have a getting started section. We have dive deeper guides, which go deep on different concepts that you might encounter. So not necessarily focused on a specific product, but these are the things that kind of tie it all together. We also have tutorials, which are product focused, how-to videos, which oftentimes mirror what's in the tutorials, troubleshooting guides, which go deep on specific technical issues. The FAQ section is brand new from, I think, end of 2023. So those are commonly asked questions, mostly about billing and payments and things that you'll encounter, as a customer or user. And then the glossary, ever expanding, useful pages on all the different terms you'll encounter at Mapbox. How-to videos. So we have explanations of various Mapbox tasks. We like to keep these under 5 minutes. So they kind of move very fast, but they will introduce a lot of information in a short time and show how to do specific things. So I know we just released or re-released one on adding custom markers to Mapbox GLJS. And we'd love to hear, in the comments, what do you want to see for a how-to video? What would have helped you when you were getting started? We also have these concept guides. Like I said, in the dive deeper section, we have a whole page on map design, for example, and styles. So you need to understand what styles are in order to be successful when you're doing Mapbox map rendering, whether it's on mobile or web. Again, this is kind of another call to action in this session, but like what's missing here? What do you think, what do you wish existed that would have helped you get started, or that would help you and your team build? We also have playgrounds. So if you haven't checked out our playgrounds, they are indispensable when you're starting to use the API. So API reference docs can be dry and show lots of curl requests and JSON responses. Playgrounds are essentially a UI built around crafting an API call. So instead of having to write out your URL parameters by hand, you can come into these playgrounds and kind of tinker with a user interface. But it's not designed to be what your end user would see. It's a tool for you as a developer to tinker with the different responses and actually show some visual of what they might look like if you put them on a map. So here we have the isochrone API. So we also have the directions API, the tile query API. You can also get some idea of how you might use these in your products when you land on these pages. So we'll show those in a bit. Now we're going to move on to some live demos. So let me stop sharing and I'll go through everything on this list and talk through it a little bit. So wish me luck on this live demo. Let me share my browser window. Okay, so the first thing I want to show is our GLJS examples. So for anyone who's a web developer using Mapbox, I'm sure you're familiar with this page. But I want to call out special attention. Before I go there, there are hundreds of examples on here. So like I said, this is my favorite single page because over the years, this has been the place where new concepts get kind of shared with the world. Even the very first item on this list is adding new clip layers. In case you're not familiar with it, clip layers are what they sound like, but you can specify a polygon, but instead of drawing something on that polygon, you can use that polygon to not draw something. So this is brand new, just came out in one of the recent versions of Mapbox GLJS, but in theory allows you to like wipe out a 3D building and replace it with your own 3D building, or wipe out markers in a certain area and make sure that this area of the map is uncluttered or doesn't have information that you don't want to show in it. So check out the clip layer. I'll also add, we recently behind the scenes did a little additional product work to add React examples. So for example, if you look at this add a pattern line to a map, you will see that there's a toggle switch here to switch between JavaScript and React. So this is actually implementing the same functionality in React and is rendering the built React code in this user interface. So it's not just showing you JavaScript and HTML, but listing it with JavaScript with React code. It is React code that is actually running. What's also great about these is you can hit this edit and code sandbox button and it'll actually pull it over into an external environment. And let's get rid of that warning, but it will render as long as you're signed in. It has your access token and we'll pull all of that over into a fully functional Vite app. So you can see the index HTML and you can see the app.js. So we're proud of that and we hope it's helpful for you if you're learning Mapbox in React. You'll also notice that we don't use a framework for this. So we are doing like a direct implementation of Mapbox GLJS within a custom component. So you have to use effect and react to different user events and then update the map accordingly. So check those out. Let's move on to some playgrounds. So this is the Searchbox API. So Searchbox API, if you're not familiar with it, relatively new in relation to our other Mapbox APIs. But you can search for restaurants. You can search for points of interest. So it's not just geocoding, but it does have a kind of massive amount of. Let's not do Taco Bell. Let's do Chipotle. So we can see all these different locations. It also has category search. So if I just click Chipotle, it's going to give me five Chipotles back, but you can see the full request URL that it took to retrieve this, and then the actual JSON response. So you can see, in addition to what just gets shown on the map, there's lots of information here about the geometry, the different properties. So for each one of these things, we also, we know the address, we know the context, so we can see which country, region, postal code. So lots of dense information behind each of these results. Whoops, let's go back. I know we can also do things like category searches. So if you search for like coffee shop, you get a category response, and it'll give you all the coffee shops in a certain geographic area. So go ahead and play around with these. There's lots of different options you can mess with to see what you can get back. But this is all designed around, not simple geocoding where you pass in a string and get back one location. This is much more designed around human-centered interactive search. So when you add this to your app, you'll have a little more robust way to show this information for somebody who's searching for things in real time. Directions API Playground, I should call out. There's so many options here for getting directions with the Mapbox navigation services. But for example, if I wanted to navigate from New York to Pittsburgh, I simply click on the map. It's going to generate a route for me. So we have a little display here on like what the steps might be. There's actually alternate routes, so I can switch between them. So we give you a little bit of user interface, but mostly, showing you the request URL, response URL, and giving you this interface so you can tinker with the different URL parameters. One thing I got to work on personally, I'm excited to share, is we can switch to electric vehicle routing. And you can see that the response here is actually going to show us the state of charge of our battery. It's going to show us where we would need to recharge and for how long. So it can help with this kind of continuous route planning. So our directions API goes above and beyond just sort of, going from point A to point B. We can actually allow you to input different parameters. So for example, this is like a common sedan profile for electric vehicle. We could switch that to an SUV. Probably has more, might need to recharge more often because it's heavier, that sort of thing. Depends on battery size, etc. But go check out the Directions API Playground. GeoJSON IO, I think somebody mentioned in chat, was a very exciting, one of their favorite tools. Again, for me, this one goes way back. It's still, I was able to work on it when I first got here a couple of years ago to modernize it because it was still using, I think it was still using raster-based maps in it. So we brought in Mapbox GLJS, but mostly the user interface has remained unchanged. So this is great when you need to just quickly draw a polygon or a point or a line string. So I can just, for example, draw a box. And if I need that rectangle in my map, or if I can draw it by, using vertices, a lot of times you'll come in here and trace a feature or, edit a feature. You can drag in GeoJSON and then start editing. So if you click, let's see here, let's do, if I click edit button, then I can like change the vertices. So a lot of times people will bring in GeoJSON from their app, edit it here and then hit save and then copy this code back and forth. So you can also switch between different base maps in this environment. And you can also share these URLs, you can encode your GeoJSON into a URL parameter, and that would make it a shareable link you could send to someone that will open. A lot of people actually use this to pipe geometries. So in their terminal or whenever they're working on something that spits out a GeoJSON as code, oftentimes you want to pipe it directly to GeoJSON IO just as like a preview. So that may be one way of using this that you're not quite as familiar with. We also have the location helper. So this used to be like a little app that would just help you get a center point that came with our storytelling app, but we wanted to promote it to more of a polished developer tool. I think this is especially useful for getting bounding boxes. So you can see as we move around the map, we have the viewport bounds updating here. So this is the entire viewport. So a lot of times, when you just want to start your map, starting with a center point and zoom may not get you the same experience every time because your map will always be loaded on different size devices with different aspect ratios. So if you can initialize your map with bounds, you'll always have exactly the feature that you want in view. And you can now just hit the copy button and actually grab this bounds array, which you can paste right into your JavaScript code if you're on the web. I would love to extend this to make it easier code snippets for mobile developers as well. So let us know what you'd love to see here. But you can see as we move around the map, we get all these kind of copyable values. So if you want to get a good initial map view that has, let's see, pitch and bearing to it, you can see this is exactly where I want to start my map if I'm making this map of Buffalo, for example. And then you can just copy these values out and use them right inside your application. We also want to share that we have a few kind of ready-made developer apps. So this for specific use cases. So this one is a real estate listing app. And it shows kind of all these different pieces of the Mapbox ecosystem that can come together. So for example, we click on a listing here. This map is not a GLJS map. This map is generated by our static images API. And we have some little tooltips here that'll explain kind of what each of these pieces does. But these are fully source available and on GitHub, so you can go check them out, run them locally, and then use the patterns you see in there for building your own UI. So, you know, there's some complex interactions here going on with the markers where we highlight things when you're clicked. You click even further and we get this kind of modal. So mixing kind of common UI patterns with the rest of the Mapbox infrastructure to get all of this to work. So we have one here for real estate, and we have another one coming very soon that'll show you a location finder, like if you were like a coffee chain and you wanted to show all your locations. So common UI patterns, but source code that's available for you as well. Storytelling maps for those of you who do this kind of work in news organizations. You know, taking advantage of the rich interactivity and animations that are available. You can kind of slide through different chapters and then zoom into different parts of the map. And these animations are really, really compelling. So this is a fully built template that you can copy here. And then we also have a starter pack that's on its own GitHub repo where you can actually, just fire this up and then start adding your own styles to it. So you can design your styles in Mapbox Studio, quickly bring them in and kind of program the different chapters and then add content and build one of these things with fairly little effort. And then last but not least, I'll share the Mapbox developer cheat sheet. So like I said earlier, we have like 40 products represented in the docs, and it can be overwhelming to understand, what each of them does. So check out the developer cheat sheet. It's just a quick way to, we explain each topic or each product or concept in, a few words. So you can kind of hover over each tile. You can flip over a whole section if you want to kind of get an overview of all the different map services we have versus navigation services. And hopefully this is helpful to you, or maybe you can share this with beginners on your team who are just learning to use Mapbox. All right, let me stop share, and I have a couple more slides, and then we'll move into Jesse's presentation. All right, so last but not least, I want to talk about feedback, because this is important to us. For me and my team that work on the docs every day, these little buttons at the bottom of every single page, I want to assure you that if you click yes or no on one of these buttons and then you give us some feedback, that doesn't get lost. It doesn't go into the ether. It goes directly to us, and we can only react to it if you give us something to react to. So the more you write, the more information you give us on why something was not meeting your expectations, the sooner and better we are at getting it fixed. Likewise, if you think it's just great and it's awesome and it really helped you out, just say yes and tell us why, so that we can mirror those patterns in other places. So code snippet was great. The explanation was great. Tell us what was good, what was bad. Just to give you some idea of like what we track. So we're tracking positive and negative feedback. So this is just a glimpse, but we're looking, about 70 or 80% positive feedback over any given time period. And that's been growing. So we're hoping to get that, up into the 80s or 90% range if we continue doing these kind of continuous improvements. So our negative feedback's trending down, our positive feedback is trending up. So this is a call to action for you to just really give us, hit those buttons and let us know what you like and don't like. And that's the best way for us to improve the docs for you. Same thing, only about 7% of the feedback we get has a written message. So when you just do a thumbs up or thumbs down and tell us the category, that's helpful. But the most helpful you can be is to actually write a message. So just say a few words and let us know what did or didn't work. A lot of times we fix it ourselves. A lot of times we pass it on to the product teams. Thank you for that. And a few more things. So we have search improvements coming soon. We have a lot of design improvements you may have seen kind of sprinkled in over the months. But we're constantly improving the docs overall platform design. We're doing Japanese docs for those of you who are interested in foreign language support and also would love to know what other languages you would love to see. We have a details API playground for our new details API. And then we have the store locator demo, which I mentioned earlier. Okay, So that will bring us to, I'm going to hand this over. Well, I won't hand it over. I'll keep the presentation up, but let's bring out Jesse, who's going to talk to you about Kappa AI. Welcome, Jesse.
Hey, Chris. Thank you for the introduction. Hi, everyone. My name is Jesse Sherrill. I'm on the support team, as well as I manage the new Kappa AI tool that we have available on our documentation page. I've been in support for over 10 years now. And with my experience, I know that the number one thing that we want to do is provide the most information to our customers and developers as quickly and easily as possible. And with AI, we're able to empower them even more. Um, oh, sorry. Go back, Chris.
Yeah, no worries.
Thank you very much. Kappa is an industry-leading developer-facing Gen AI provider. Um, we looked through a lot of different options. They stuck out the most for us because one of the big things that a lot of people have recognized in AI is hallucinations. Um, the best thing with them is they're able to provide us with tools that help us to prevent that as easily as possible. They continually test with the latest models on the market. As of right now, they're using ChatGPT models to provide the best uh, um, tool for us, as well as look at varying different options as they become available on the market. Our number one goal with Kappa is to provide a top tier support experience in all languages 24/7. All right, next slide. There it
Jesse, are
is.
you seeing the next slide?
Yep, now I am. Thank you very much. So like I mentioned before, hallucinations were a pretty big issue when AI was first coming out. Kappa has reduced this dramatically with how they implement our tool. They use the language models to answer questions, but they restrict the response to the sources which we feed it. As you can see, uh, these are basically all of our public documentation and provided direction that we provide for our developers. Our public docs page, SDKs, API references, a few Stack Overflow posts, as well as our YouTube tutorials that we have now available. This, of course, as time progresses, will expand. And as we have more documentation and sources, we'll get the tool to improve even more over time. Next slide, please. So as it's showing right here, on our documentation page, in the lower right-hand corner, we have the Ask AI button. If you go ahead and just click that, query box will pop up and just ask it any questions you have. You can ask it questions based off of our documentation pages. You can also ask it to create example codes as well as review your current code. It's a great tool to just kind of have fun with and explore our documentation even further with. One of the great benefits that we have as well on our end with this tool is we're able to see the most frequently asked questions and then adjust documentation and direction to our customers accordingly. Next slide. And then, of course, like Chris mentioned before, just like anything else, AI is constantly improving. Please help us help you. If it gives a good response, please let us know. We'd like to mirror that and continually provide the best product to our customers. If it's an incorrect answer or seems just a little off, even if you're not sure, please let us know for that as well. And give us any details and feedback as necessary. And we really appreciate that. And then I think after this, I'll go ahead and demonstrate a couple of our most commonly asked questions. Let's make sure this works. Can you see that all right?
Looks good.
Awesome. All right, so here's our documentation page. Just go ahead and go to our Ask AI. And the number one most frequently asked questions we got was, how do I customize my map? It takes a couple seconds to start, and then it'll just give you a bunch of different suggestions. As you can see, this is a broad option, giving you a variety of answers for the question. With our documentation, we've noticed that a lot of our traffic comes from GLJS. So let's go ahead and funnel down to a more specific topic. How do I get started with Mapbox's GLJS? And just like that, it'll start giving you specific steps to go through, as well as even provide some example code that you can use in your implementation. And even bring back up topics of customizing your map and giving you the getting started guide. Awesome.
Looks like it also reminded the user to replace the your Mapbox access token placeholder, which is a very common pitfall when people get started with these front end renders or actually any of our tools. Make sure you put your access token in.
Right. Yep. It'll funnel information from past experiences as well to help customers with most frequently asked questions. So yeah, thank you for that. And then here's another question we get. How do I change the paint property of a layer? GLJS. And there we go. It'll pull the specific property as well as give you some example code. As well as you can see, it pulled a Stack Overflow post. And then final question. This is something that I used to get when I first started here at Mapbox. My map doesn't seem to be displaying. How can I fix it? And there you go. It'll give you suggestions based off of past experiences, like I said. And there we go. I'm super happy to announce and share this tool with you today. Of course, if there's any feedback or anything that we can do to improve it, please let us know. And I really hope that each of you use this in your development process and let us know how we can improve it. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Jesse. So let's bring out Emily and Andrew. And while they're coming out here, I also mentioned that the same tool that powers that Kappa AI, or the same tool that powers that AI-powered developer help that you saw Jesse presenting, is also in our developer Discord in a channel. So some people like that better because they can go back and find their old thread. Because if you do it in the docs, and reload your browser, you might lose that whole conversation. So go check out the Discord if you want as well, and you might have a more persistent thread that you can go back and look at later. Okay, we're ready for some Q&A. So drop your questions in on the Q&A feature in Zoom. And yeah, so let's see. So I see one question already posted here about EV routing. Is this available in the mobile navigation SDK? I'm not 100% on this, but I think the answer is no there. I think this is more, it's API functionality for someone to really build a custom interface around, because those who are doing, EV things are usually having highly specialized UIs. So I can follow up and try and get a more clear answer on that, but I don't think it actually shows, I don't think the navigation SDK actually consumes that. Okay. I think there was a question here about, let's see. Improve the Mapbox documentation. As an iOS developer, I would like to see more Swift UI examples around animations and custom image layers. Also, it'd be great to mention memory and bandwidth limitations. So I don't think that's really a question. So it is a statement. I don't know if anyone has a comment on that, but we can definitely keep that in our pocket and see if we can improve more Swift UI. Okay, question from Philippe. Very big fan of the docs. One thing that we deal with a lot at our agency is handling external data sources such as APIs, DB-linked, and CSV data, and bringing them into Mapbox GLJS. A doc exploring different design patterns for adding to an external GeoJSON file or similar data options would be very helpful to our team. Okay, again, not necessarily a question. If anyone has thoughts or comments on that, we could talk about it. Here's another question from Holly. Oh, sorry, go ahead if you have something.
I was just going to say, it sounds like a great option for creating custom tile sets to bring that in, and Mapbox tiling service to sort of automate the ingestion of those DB-linked CSV data to get that into GLJS. But yeah, that sounds like a something that we could look at. I think Emily took note of that, and we'll spend some time seeing what we have currently and if we can build something out that addresses that. Thanks, Philippe.
Yeah. Question I see here is, does Kappa AI also know about Mapbox products that are no longer supported in the docs? Specifically, they're asking about the RN Mapbox repo, which is React Native. It's a React Native wrapper for our mobile SDKs. And that you can use on Expo repo React Native apps. So do you know anything about that, Jesse? Like, does it go find, I think if it's looking in Stack Overflow, it must be able to find some comments on these third-party packages.
Right. Yeah, so I believe it has pulled that up before based off the Stack Overflow posts, but we mainly have it based off of our current products at this time.
Yeah, so I think while products might be legacy, they're still being crawled by Kappa AI, and React Native, that repo is in GitHub and not mentioned at all in our documentation. So whatever occurrences occur around that would just be pulled from Stack Overflow.
Yep.
So I see a question about, is there any documentation about adding GeoJSON files as base maps in Mapbox Studio? For example, using ordnance survey base maps in Mapbox. So I think they're asking more about kind of, I guess, a typical use case for Studio is adding your data to an already existing rich set of base map data. So it sounds like you're suggesting that you want to kind of start from a clean slate, but build a full map. So I'm going to say probably not, but that sounds like a really great idea for those that have this kind of specialized use case. Anyone else have thoughts on that?
Yeah, it'd be interesting to know what sort of what customers are wanting to do that. And, I could imagine us being able to spin something up where you kind of style the base map to like be, neutral or almost nothing, pixels of white, and allowing them to add their customized layer data on top of that. But yeah, that sounds like an interesting use case, Aaron. Nothing currently.
Yeah, I think that's one of those. This came up when I worked for city government here in New York, but they were strong people with strong opinions about presenting our data on top of somebody else's base map. No matter how good it looked, they kind of wanted to have a lot more control over, literally the shape of streets and the shape of plazas and things like that. So I could totally see a start from scratch tutorial and build something that is not just an overlay, but like a full-fledged style with custom data. Okay, so I see another question here. In React, there is the React Map GL wrapper, which has not been updated for a while. Recently, we noticed that your documentation refers to map GL, for example. Which one do you recommend using? I have thoughts on this, but I want to know if anyone else might want to take it first.
Go for it, Chris. I'll flesh out any thoughts I have after.
Yeah, I think our preferred advice here basically is to not use a framework. And I know not everyone's going to take that advice, but effectively, you know, the frameworks will only get you so far, and we are constantly introducing new functionality into Mapbox GLJS, and from my perspective, it actually helps you become a more it extends your power, I guess, in terms of what you can do with it if you actually learn how to integrate it into the component lifecycle on your own. So the wrappers, you know, I guess will get you only so far, and at some point once you want to go a little farther, you're going to have to write a custom implementation anyway. So it helps to kind of understand the actual methods and all the different options you can use to add, remove layers, change layers, set properties. All that stuff, but kind of doing it because you're basically, it's the same as mutating the DOM directly, which you shouldn't be necessarily doing much when you're in React, but you kind of have to do it this way when you're doing it with when you're presenting a GLJS web map. So I guess that's what I would say is that we don't, that's why we kind of list the different options in our plugins and frameworks list, but I don't think that we necessarily promote one over the other. And if they work for you, that's great, but it's not something we're going to document much. Okay, one more question here from Luke. Are there any plans to release video and document tutorials showcasing projects and designs from cartographers and map creatives using Mapbox? I've always enjoyed reading past articles from Johnny Walker and other contributors.
I can take this one. So we don't have anything in the current pipeline regarding like this specific use case. But this is, we can look into this and see if this is something that is feasible for us to do. But yeah, I'll definitely take note of this and add it to like our list of like potential video ideas.
Yeah, I'll also add, I think that the design side of things is probably underrepresented. I think there's a lot of, especially, we're trying to do a little bit of that when we show you these ready-made demo apps that we've created that kind of can show you a little glimpse at like, what good UI design looks like outside of the map, like all the things, all the buttons and panels and things that belong outside the map. So I would love to see a lot more of that, where we actually present, I would love to build like a marker library where we have like thousands of great marker designs that you could just, go get some design inspiration from and start using. But I think you're right. We should definitely highlight more of the design side of things to show what's possible and give people inspiration. Let's see. Some more questions in here. Are you going to add the ability to implement asynchronous authorization in Mapbox? I'm referring to the transform request method. Yeah, I don't know that I have an answer for that, and I don't. Yeah, if anyone else can chime in, go for it, but I don't think we have anyone who can answer that question on this panel. Great, here's a good one. Anonymous. All right, how does your team decide which example case to create in the examples on the Mapbox doc site? How often are new examples added?
I'll take that. That ultimately examples are created mostly by the product teams as new features are released in GLJS. So an example will come out based on new product features. So the clipping path map that Chris referenced in his examples, this is something that product team just released recently as that feature became available. We have over 120 examples in GLJS that right now, and we're hoping that covers the basic main usage. If there's any particular use cases that you'd want to see an example, we'd love to hear it. I have not, haven't been able to find a experience that I haven't been able to match an example to at this point. But yeah, we'd love to cover all our bases. So if you see any holes in that, we'd be happy to hear.
I'll chime in also, just as someone who's written some of these from scratch. And it boils down to a lot of times it's something that I'm actually doing in a real world project, and it just kind of strikes you like there should be an example that shows just this one little thing that I'm doing. I think like the ant path one was one that came up. That one actually I saw in like a GitHub thread, and somebody actually shared some code to actually make an animated ant path. And I was like, this needs to be in the examples, because there's so many other people that will probably want to do these like animated pattern lines. So that became an example, and it's been pretty popular since then. So yeah. I see another question here about, will there be additional documentation on editing, manipulating, and making method calls to the Mapbox standard style? So it's a pretty long question, but I think a lot of the more traditional ways that you interact with the map don't work anymore in standard. And I think what you're saying here is that we don't really go in depth on, we show you how to get started with it, but we don't go quite as deep on what you can't do anymore if you choose standard. So it is a trade-off there. So I think we can take that one and put it in our pocket to make sure that we explain that a bit more. And I think we're going to wrap it up. I see a question about Tippecanoe, but it's not something we can comment on here. But maybe you can do it in the Ask Me Anything session, or maybe find me on Discord and I'll see if I can answer. Actually, there's one more left. So let's say, what are the limitations of the tokens in the documentation playground? Would I be able to abuse it if I wanted to? Maybe Andrew might know that one.
So, our tokens and Mapbox tokens overall are always exposed in the front end to the client. So our playground tokens, the ones that we use for our docs playgrounds, we have URL restrictions on those tokens. So you wouldn't be able to make requests with those elsewhere. And we suggest that if you're building an application using access tokens with Mapbox, that you do set up URL restrictions for your application or on your token that correspond to your application, domain path, that sort of thing. So the answer is no, but yes, Mapbox access tokens are available in the front end, and you need to do your best to cycle your tokens to keep them fresh and reduce the potential for abuse, and also add things like URL restrictions in your account.
Okay, I think that'll wrap us up. So thank you. Well, first of all, thank you all for your suggestions on different documentation. We're going to keep all these in mind as we move forward, trying to improve this. Thank you to Andrew, Emily, and Jesse for participating in this session. And then as kind of a parting word, I hope we showed you something that you didn't know today about the tools available to you as you build with Mapbox. We'd love to hear your ideas for better content, different tools we could build. What do you need to be successful building with Mapbox? We'd love to hear it. So thank you for your time and attention today, and enjoy the rest of Build with Mapbox. Take care.